On imom.com, we share ideas, insight, and inspiration. We do all that here too by sharing the best kind of stories, mom stories. We're all at different ages and stages, but one thing we have in common is that we're striving, and sometimes struggling, to love our children well. It's the iMom Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the iMom Podcast. Once again, joining me this week are Megan, Chloe, Susan. I'm Abby, and this week's story is from me. It is not my story. It is about a friend being given to me with permission, but I have changed the names of the innocent. The name of the episode is, the name of the story is Please Don't Tell Dad. So Annie, my friend, her daughter Haley is in 8th grade, but last year when she was in 7th grade, Haley's science teacher called Annie midway through the school day, like the last half of the school day, to tell her about an incident that would happen at school that day. I guess this class period, I don't know if you guys remember this. I did have this experience in high school, but this science class was one that was split in half by lunch. Did you guys ever have like a class where lunch was right in the middle and so you'd go and then eat and then come back?
Yes.
No.
Isn't it funny? I did the same thing, Chloe, like the same, like I did have to do that.
Yeah.
Megan, what about you? Do you remember that?
No, I don't think we did that.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, I think it was, I don't know if we were on block scheduling where we only had 4 classes. And
we had block scheduling.
That's how it worked out. Yeah. So, I mean, talk about torturing kids.
Yeah.
You have to stop class and then go back with a full stomach or having eaten like cookies and stuff and, try to get back into like the second half of a class. Anyway, so that was this science class. And Haley and 2 of her friends came back from lunch with just a little bit of extra silly in them. And the teacher warned them, girls, settle down. All 3 of them, good students, honor roll students. But the laughter, had set in and you know how that goes. And then Haley tripped over a backpack. And I guess that was like the beginning of the end. Everyone lost it. And the teacher said she was going to call the parents and call home. And all the girls straightened up. But when Haley got home, she knew that she had a talk coming. She confessed the whole thing to my friend, accepted the consequence of writing an apology letter to the teacher. But then she looked at my friend and she just said, "Please don't tell Dad." And my friend said, "I've already told him. Mm-hmm. I've already told your father." She's like, "I just don't think, it's not that she wanted to keep it a secret. She's like, I just don't think she wanted to see the disappointment on his face. Mm-hmm. She probably didn't want the lecture, but, she was like, can we please just let it die without him knowing? Does he have to know?" And she said it actually worked out better because since she told him in advance, by the time he got home, he had time to think about it and settle down about it. And it ended up being like a nice little conversation between all them and everything went well. But it raised the question in my mind of, all those times that our kids want us to keep a secret from our spouse, whether it's, telling Dad and Dad don't tell Mom or the other way around. I would guess it's probably more Mom don't tell Dad. Just a hunch, because I think that moms are usually more in the know about things. And so it's better, I think, to only have one parent mad at you or only be in trouble with one parent than both.
It's very smart, actually.
Yeah. But, I mean, from your experience, Susan, do you have a lot of memories of keeping secrets from Mark and I'm not talking about like secrets from friends, and that's a whole nother issue, but like for your
Megan,
kids have
I
asked
have
you
a
to
question
keep.
though, before we go to that. Did you ever go to Dad and ask him not to tell Mom? I'm curious now.
Only if he gave me like money or something, I'd be like, "Don't tell Mom."
Oh yeah, that does happen. I know that. Don't tell. Yeah, Dad does give the money. I would say this: Mark does not like me to have secrets. We do not have secrets, so I don't like calling it secrets. Really, I think I know there have been times when my kids have said, "Please don't tell Dad." So what the agreement we kind of have is, if I feel the child is going to withhold out of fear of Mark knowing, just because maybe his reaction is going to be worse or less understanding, then I will make that commitment. I won't tell Dad. Now, then my goal is to wait for the right time to ask the child, would that happen, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe they don't care. Like in the case of your friend, it was kind of silly because, kids getting in trouble in school, that's just not that big of a deal. And later tell them just, hey, FYI, just, a week ago I got called. You don't need to say anything to her about it. It's way over. She felt bad, but I just want to make sure you know.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Because that's really
It's so funny because I think we are disagreeing on a lot of these. I think that we might have different opinions on some of these.
Well, everybody has a different thing with their spouse, I think, but Mark is a truth warrior.
Yeah.
And so he wants to know the truth at all times, and he doesn't like that feeling that I've lied to him. So if he straight up asks me about something, whether I've made a promise to Arcus or not, I will either say, I promised I would not say anything, but yes, there was a situation and I've addressed it, and I'm working on the child to gain permission so that I can tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it starts with having a team mindset between you and your spouse, and however that team looks. So is the team where we don't keep any secrets from one another? We, if I know, you know, and my trust with you is number one, that's paramount. And then the kids come after that, you know, or is it, we both acknowledge that we are trying to build solid relationships with our children so that they trust us. You know, I think you just have to know what your policy is with your spouse, right?
And I think the other thing is, what is the magnitude of the secret? If your child is doing drugs, your husband needs to know.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, or if it's something really like that, or if it's just they got a call from the teacher.
Right. Well, let's go through these. So these are, I think they're not one size fits all situations. So the question is, should you keep the secret, or should you spill the beans to dad? So here's situation number one is the bad grade or the call from teacher. Megan, do you tell dad or do you keep it a secret?
And the teacher called you?
So you got the call from the teacher. Yeah, like mom got the call from teacher, or your James brings home a D on a social studies test.
I think my husband would need to know, or, you know, I would tell him that I'm handling it with him, but I would definitely tell him that.
Chloe?
Yeah, I think I'm going to tell. I feel like I'm on a game show. Abby, I'm going to tell the dad.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
And Susan, you said you think you could wait on this one.
I would, in this case, I would not make the promise to the child and say, hey, look, we all make bad grades, that we got to talk about this situation. You're going to tell your dad. Mm-hmm. Because to me, grades are pretty transparent. This is something that's going on. It's just not a big deal. Let's just deal with it. It's not, you know.
So you're going to encourage your child to tell
I'm going to say, yeah, we need to talk about it. You made a bad grade. And I know, but you know, we've been talking to you all semester about maybe not trying hard enough. So we got to rearrange your life a little bit. Yeah. Let's all talk about it.
I like that.
I think too that it depends on what your husband prioritizes. Like in the case of my friend, she knew that her husband cared more about their daughter's conduct than academics. And I agree. You know, I care more that my child is respecting his teacher and, you know, all that stuff. So withholding the fact that you got a call about conduct, to me, feels a little bit like you're undermining your spouse.
Ooh,
you know, like this is really important to me.
Yes.
I deserve to know that this happened.
Yeah,
so
good.
I think, again, it is personal. All right,
and it's also a breach of their relationship. Like they need to, he coached the dad through not making her feel so fearful about, you know, when she does act out.
That's good.
Yep. All right. So if it's a personal issue, like, if, you know, maybe a girl getting her period or wearing a bra for the first time, or this happened in my house. Oh gosh, I'm spilling this one. Oh. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing to my son now. I learned that my younger son thinks a girl is pretty.
Oh.
He told me it's Ginny Weasley from the Harry Potter movies.
Oh, nice.
He's like, I think she's cute. Don't tell. He asked not to tell his stepfather. He's like, don't tell her. Don't tell him. And I was like, okay. So this was like a personal thing for him, but I was kind of snickering, you know. I told him because there was no risks or anything like that. I was like, Graham thinks Ginny Weasley is cute. But anyway, so do you think, Chloe, you're going to go first on this one. For personal issues, body things, crushes, should you keep your child's secret from dad?
Oh gosh, that's so hard. Because I feel like if it's a female thing, I don't understand why the dad would need to know. I mean, maybe mom can be really sensitive with the information and say, oh, she's going through some stuff, and I don't know. But then I'm thinking, I'm not a parent yet, but I think about Oh gosh, I tell my husband way too much. That's the issue. Is I
think it depends on the husband too. If he's going to be weird about stuff and make her uncomfortable.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I guess
there is no right or wrong answer, really. Susan,
I don't know.
I want to hear what Megan says first.
I feel like when it came to a lot of stuff, I asked my mom not to tell my dad. Mainly, I think more in like the high school, college years, because I think I was dating, and I think there were a few situations with boys that I knew my dad would just freak out about. So I think it was kind of protecting both parties. It was protecting me from being embarrassed that my dad knew something that I didn't want him to know about me, and also protecting him from like obsessing over my dating relationships. And so in that case, I do think I wouldn't tell, but I also think it depends on the parent again, and how they are with that child. And I'm the oldest, and I'm a girl. My dad comes from a family of all boys. And so he was kind of like awkward with me when it came to dating and things like that. And it was just like a really uncomfortable situation. And so I think I told my mom a lot that I asked her not to say anything to him about, because I was afraid it was just going to be even more awkward and that he was going to stress about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the stuff like the period and stuff, that's just a girl talking to another girl because they feel embarrassment, just weirdness. So to me, that kind of stuff is just silly in life, but important to them at the time. So, of course, I would just say something to Mark like, hey, just heads up, your little girl's not a little girl anymore. Don't talk to her about it.
That's good.
She doesn't want to talk. And he would just roll his eyes like, oh, no, here we go. So it really wasn't a secret.
Yeah,
and so not treating it like a secret is just kind of the key to me.
And that's kind of honoring what you mentioned about Mark earlier, is he values truth so much and wants to not be missing information. So you're giving him all the information he needs to know.
Right. I think that is exactly it. Like, I imagine a father of a girl who's 12, and he walks by her room and he sees her changing and she's wearing a bra, and he never knew that she wore a bra. And he goes to his wife and he's like, how long has Haley been wearing a bra?
Oh.
And you're like, 2 years. And if I were the dad, I'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah.
No. Family dinner. This is my story. Family dinner. Came to dinner.
I can't wait to hear where this goes.
But just know this. I had started wearing a bra. I did not want to wear a bra, but I did ballet, and my ballet teacher literally said she has to start wearing a bra. And so
we're talking about young Susan now. Young
like mom
Susan. Okay,
we're talking about young Susan. I sit down at the dinner table in front of my brothers, my other sister, everybody. My dad goes, "Oh, Susan has a new undergarment on tonight." In front of my whole family.
Oh.
I stopped wearing a bra. I put it away. Wouldn't wear it. It was traumatic for me. So in that case, I just feel like girl stuff is girl stuff, and you don't need to talk about it with the guys. Yeah. And dad's a guy, and hey, heads up, don't say a word about this.
So no bringing it up at the dinner table.
Yeah. No, the boys don't need to know. Dad doesn't need to know. This is mother-daughter stuff, and guys stay out of it.
I think that was also maybe a dad thing, like a dads from the 60s, 70s, like
it must be.
I remember my grandfather saying some really awkward things to me. And it's just like, come on, Grandpa, like, no. Yeah. So that's I agree on that one. When it comes to personal things, I think you can keep the secret. I mean, hint about it, but I think that you can keep it quiet, especially with brothers or younger siblings. Let it just kind of be a personal thing.
Yeah. Susan, you didn't respond to, what I said about secret keeping.
About the dating part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the next one is about dating and relationships. So I'm seeing those as two separate things. It's the personal stuff, like the body things, versus dating and relationships.
Got it. Yeah. Got it.
Okay, the dating and relationships, and you telling me, Megan, that you didn't want me to tell Dad. So if Megan was coming to me telling me this because she needed understanding or she just needed a vent and she didn't want Mark to know about it, I would most of the time not tell him unless I thought she was in danger. Like I said, I mean, she's asking in confidence and we want that. And so I would say to Mark, if he said, well, who's this guy and whatever, and say, you know what, she's been sharing with me about it and telling me some things, and I'm okay with it now. I'm talking to her about it, and she's asked me not to share with you, but I feel like it's under control, and she's being honest with me, so all is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but would he just be fine with that, or would
no,
he?
There were times when he would kind of push, but again, I'd wait to watch the relationship, and then if I felt like there was some strategy we needed to employ, or it was going down a different path. But Megan, you were pretty good most of the time about stuff, so I didn't. It really is a give and take. Sometimes also I just pray for, okay, I need to tell Mark this. When is the right time? And, God, open the door where I can tell him in a space where it's not going to distress him.
Yeah.
I knew a girl in high school who was dating a boy behind her father's back. Mom knew, dad didn't. And then one night the boy's car broke down and dad had to go and rescue them. And he was so hurt. He was angry at the daughter and lost trust in her, but he was hurt that his wife had been keeping it from him and he felt disrespected. And I think that especially when it comes to dating relationships, if your child comes to you, most likely it's going to be the daughter, right? Probably not a son coming to you. Don't tell dad I'm dating this girl. But if your child asks you not to tell your husband that, she's dating, it should be a red flag. Is this the wrong person? If you don't want dad to know, or are our rules for dating unfair? I think that's the one that maybe means you do need to talk about it, because it might be indicative of some bigger problem going on.
And in Megan's case, it was never a lie. I never lied to Mark. So these weren't things that were happening that, how would you say it, Megan? We're like, you didn't even want him to know when you got kissed.
You weren't withholding an incident. You were withholding just conversations about life, sort of.
Yeah, I think there was maybe a couple of incidences, but
yeah, there were a couple.
I mean,
Chloe, were you allowed to date, or did you talk to your mom or dad about it?
I did talk to my mom. I wasn't allowed to really date until I was 16, and that was really hard because I liked boys from a very young age. So I was not...
We've heard about that in other episodes.
Teenage drama queen.
Yes. I was not eager to tell my dad about any of my crushes. And I tried to keep it away as much as I could. But my heart was going to burst if I didn't tell someone, and I told my mom.
I mean, I think that a dad really wants, a good dad would really want to, and sorry, this isn't a knock on Megan and Susan in those conversations you had. That's not what I mean. But like, a dad would want to be able to guide his daughter and talk to the boy. And, I think that if you're trying to keep that a secret, that should really tell you that something's up. There's a reason.
Yeah. And most guys had to meet. Guys to date our girls had to meet Mark.
Yeah, that's how my family was.
So I don't think there was any secretive dating. Do you, Megan? I'm trying to think back.
No. He knew everyone I was dating.
Yeah.
And he met them all. It was more of like, as relationships progressed and we dated for a while, things that may have happened that I was like, oh, I don't want dad to know that.
Yeah, because I think, and this might be going in a different direction, but what about when your kid doesn't outright say something to you about a relationship, but you notice it going on? Like my high school relationship I was in for 3 years, I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on that I didn't tell my mom all the details, but she knew, because just a mom's pondering, observation, intuition, a mix of it all. I mean, is that...
That's the child keeping secrets. That's the next episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do when your child's keeping secrets?
Yeah.
All right, last scenario then. And we're deciding, do you tell or do you keep the secret? If you catch your child doing bad, if you know that they've gotten into trouble or you have caught them, making trouble, and they say, please, 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 don't tell dad, what do you do? Do you tell or do you keep it a secret?
If it's big trouble, I tell. But I think there's an underlying thing going on here too. Like in the case of the girls and its personal bodily functions or whatever, I get that. That's just girl shame, I can't talk. Girl embarrassment.
Yeah.
But in the case of misbehavior, things like that, I think, why should dad not know? Okay, dad's going to react worse. Dad's going to have a harder consequence. Am I too easy? Or does dad need coaching on how not to react? Well, the worst thing we can do as a parent is react, because then it shuts our kids down. We have to kind of come at them with questions, go, well, okay, tell me how this happened. Has this happened before? Is this becoming a habit, or is this a first time? I always say, is this a first time consequence? Is this a second? Why are we hiding this? So I think there's some underlying things to address even before the why are we hiding the secret that the mom has to answer.
Well, I think one of the reasons why I didn't want my dad to know some of this stuff was because I was so afraid of his disappointment. And I'll never forget, there was one, season I was just getting into so much trouble. And my mentor had encouraged me to talk to my mom and my dad about it. And I did not want to talk to my dad about it. But when I sat down and talked to them both, my dad, I was sitting across from them. They were on a couch. I was on a couch. My dad jumped off that couch and hugged me and was like, I love you so much. And that's all he said. And that opened an opportunity for me to see my dad in a different way, because that was always in him. But if I was just constantly hiding stuff from him, he never got an opportunity to love me like that.
Right. He loves me because I'm an angel. But wait, now I realize he loves me because I'm a human and I make mistakes. He still loves me.
Right.
Megan and Chloe, because you both have mentioned not wanting to tell your dads. Is that like a father-daughter thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Megan, you answered too, but I think, I want my dad to be proud of me. I still do. I'm 27.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's like, I think I knew I could talk to you, Mom, about stuff, and it would be like a conversation and something you could identify with because you were my age. You were a girl and my age at one point. Whereas like, I think with Dad, I think I always thought of him as thinking of me as his like little girl. And I didn't like disappointment from him is a different feeling than like disappointment from you. And I don't know how to describe it. And I don't even know if that makes sense, but
no, totally does. I think I don't know. I can't put my finger on it either, but it's the same. It's the same. Yeah. I think that when your child is caught doing bad, I think you should always tell your husband, but I think that timing is important with that one. I think that it needs to be something that you tell him privately, like never in the room with the child, Haley got in trouble today. But I mean, what kind of horrible position are you putting everybody in that situation? And then, if you go back to one of our first episodes with I Spy, Susan found out that, through the cell phone thing that Marky was doing something, and you waited like 7 days,
a week
to tell your husband, because you were using that time to
gather information.
Yeah. And you didn't want him to blab it.
Yeah.
So there was strategery. There was a strategy there to all of it. So I think that's where you use your wisdom. Yeah. And speaking of wisdom, I think you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think the big picture also is if your child is asking you to keep the secret from their dad, you have to ask why. Is there a temper issue? Is it because she doesn't want dad to be disappointed? But then, when dad sees her mistakes and offers forgiveness, that opens a whole new level and layer to their relationship. So
can you ask your child, why do you want me to keep this from dad?
I think that's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you can coach that relationship. Like, I agree with you, Abby, that if you do it in the private, or like if your husband tends to overreact and get angry or get upset or get disappointed, become disappointed, and it shows in his face, it gives him time to process and then sit down and talk with the child without being dramatic.
All right. So do you think that you should keep your child's secrets from your spouse? Are there times when it's okay? Or is there some times that it's never okay? There's an email link in the show notes, so tell us what you think. And you can get links to everything we talk about on the podcast in those show notes, and link to subscribe to the iMom Minute. And thanks for listening. Instinct plays a big part in parenting, but sometimes you need the help of a mom friend. iMom's team of writers have kids of all ages and personalities, so no matter what you're dealing with, you can find wisdom on imom.com. Dating, discipline, tattling, or just ways to show love to the difficult child. We have a different voice than a lot of mom sites today, so join millions of moms who use imom.com as a source of ideas, insight, and inspiration to love their families well. The iMom podcast is hosted and produced by Abby Watts, along with Susan Merrill, Megan Tigner, and Chloe Blumenthal, edited by Isaiah Gunther.